364. That's 07811 659 364. Serving the community, 102.5 Eva FM.
Indeed, serving the community. This is Eva FM 102.5, and this is your show today. It is a special one, and it is about Hastings, I like to call. It is not an interview, and it is opportunity to know most of our candidates for the coming election, the 2nd May, for the role of the PCC. That is Crime, Police and Crime Commissioner.
Election talks. Absolutely.
Election talks. Indeed. And before I go into the deep into, as I've been asking my guests to be there, I like to introduce them one by one. Veej, take that lead.
Okay. So you want me to introduce everyone?
Yes,
okay.
Please.
So we have 3 candidates. The first candidate is Aisha Bora. She is from the Green Party, I believe so. She's lived and worked in Leicester for 14 years as a teacher and project worker embedded in the community. Always have been interested in people and helping them recognize their own power. Proudly standing as the Green Police and Crime Commissioner candidate, and wants to bring new energy and ideas to the role as well as to listen and learn. She has 3 main policies she wants to deliver on, and I'm going to let her speak about the policies when we bring her on. So Hashim, can you please introduce Rupert Matthews, the Conservative Party member?
Indeed. Rupert Matthews is running for Conservatives. The Conservative candidate is his way of making sure he's very good in writing, and I won't make justice to when I'm reading. He says his mission is to make our village, town, and save it of the people who live and work and make fun. The job of the police is to catch the criminals, prevent crime, and keep safe. I will make sure, and I will let him say that what he studies to do, because I don't want to be he's here present today. I will support rejuvenate the unique British concept of policing by consent. I will work in partnership with the public, and then I will lobby the government to see that Leicestershire police get a fair share. I will relentlessly lobby government for more effective and national action against the crime. Next candidate, Veej.
Okay, so the next candidate we have here is Ian Sharp. Ian Sharp has lived in Loughborough for 28 years. He's a retired finance director. He's also a managing director of a Eurospace business and led an international renewables energy business. He was led member of finance for Charnwood Borough Council. Since retiring, he's undertaken voluntary work in vocational education. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own home and walking down their own street. But for too far many people, that's simply not the reality. He has wrote some stuff about the Conservatives, which I'm not going to mention. There's a lot of policy in there that he wants to talk about as well. So yeah, Ian Sharp represents the Liberal Democrats, and he is here with us today, joining us. The other 2 candidates we just wanted to mention were the Labour Party and also the One Leicester. We did invite them to come along, but they did not come. They couldn't make it. So Rory Palmer from Labour and Fizia, I believe, from One Leicester.
Indeed, and one of the things that I do is that we always give a fair chance to everyone, and those who responded are majority, and we have 3 of them today.
Absolutely.
So
should we bring them live into this talk?
Indeed, please. Yes.
Okay, so I'm bringing everyone live one by one. There we go. Okay, so Hashim, over to you, sir.
Thank you ever so much. And as I said before, Aisha will be first because of the surname. Aisha, welcome to our program. And as I mentioned before, we will be putting more what you as a candidate will do for us if you are elected. So my first question is, what are your priorities, please?
Good afternoon, Hashim. And not Aisha, but Asia.
Asia. Oh, sorry.
Asia.
Not that Aisha is not a beautiful name. It is, but I'm Asia.
Asia. Let me do it again. That's not of me, not remembering or reading what is here on scripted.
Not a big deal. I just thought I'd say so. So let's get straight to the chase. With myself elected, you won't see change on day one because I'm not there to sort of, I want to keep what's good and change what needs changing. And that involves a lot of listening to different communities and a lot of listening to the police as well. The 3 policy planks I have are embedded policing in terms of tri-service safety officers. Now, it's like a big long phrase, tri-service safety officers, but what it means is police officers who are from their local communities, permanently based there. They work with mental health provision, they work with NHS, they have fire service, first responder skills, and also paramedic skills. So the community gets to know them, recognize them, they're a completely familiar face, and that creates a lot of trust and accountability. When it's been piloted in Cornwall, it's worked really well. So I'd like to bring that pilot in and when successful, follow the evidence, roll it out. So that's the first policy plank where the Greens have. The second is to explore and address and then take steps to sort of tackle the amount of domestic violence or domestic abuse we have going on. Primary victims are women. Men can be the victims. It's not that they can't. And something needs to happen about the fact that of reporting for when men are the victims, because there's a stigma and a shame attached to which we need to tackle. But primary victims are women. When women are reporting what happens to them in abusive relationships, they need to be centered, they need to be believed, they need to be listened to. And the third one is to safeguard youth provisions across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, because young people really need that normality in terms of leisure and training services. They need peer-to-peer mentoring to kind of safeguard them from, being picked off for crime when they are vulnerable, when they are kind of, when there's a background of deprivation, that kind of thing. So safeguarding youth services is a third policy plank.
Thank you. I'll come back to you. I'm going still by order of the surname. Now is the Conservative candidate, Robert Matthews. And it's same question. What are your priorities?
Well, I've been the Police and Crime Commissioner now for 3 years. And obviously I want to continue in that role because that's why I'm standing for election. So my main priority is to keep our communities safe. There's a lot of different ways to do that. One of the most important is to stop crime from happening in the first place. So crime prevention is really important. Also solving problems. So what I want to be doing is working alongside councils, neighbourhood watch, voluntary groups, charities and so on, to try to stop the problems arising in the first place. So very often you can take fairly simple action in order to cut down on crime. So maybe an extra CCTV camera, maybe better lighting, maybe cutting bushes back so there are better sight lines and there's less places for people to hide in. So some of this stuff can be quite straightforward, but also, of course, the vast majority of the work and the budget goes on the police. So something over 97% at the moment of the budget is spent on the police. And we've got to make sure that they've got the training and the equipment that they need, as well as the backup from forensics and admin to get their job done. So this is a huge role. It covers a lot of ground. But at the end of the day, it's about keeping our communities safe. And that's what I'm determined to do.
Indeed. Thank you for keeping short. And that's the way I like it, because we have a lot of questions coming from the public. Last but not least, sir, Ian Sharp. Ian, as I asked, and will ask the same question, what are your priorities if you are elected?
Thank you very much. And firstly, can I just thank Hashim Veej for inviting us to this important hustings. And I really welcome the opportunity to excuse me, speak to your listeners and indeed online viewers. My vision for the police is I will support our police to deliver the priorities of our community. That may seem a simple phrase, but it actually says a lot. I would support our police are very short of resources. We should take into account that the budget that the police force will operate to next year requires them to make over £5 million worth of cuts, which will threaten the jobs of hundreds or 100, let's not exaggerate, 100 service personnel, which are forensic scientists, call centre operators, people who prepare the cases to go to the Crown Prosecution Service, the people who repair the vehicles. So our police are desperately short of resources. And I would support those, our police, one, by trying wherever possible to cut costs, particularly from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, but also within the police force itself. Because as a finance director and a former managing director, I believe I have the skills to ensure that the resources are put in the right place. Now, in terms of supporting our community and delivering our community's priorities, the obvious question is, what are those priorities? And you only know by going out and talking to the community and ensuring the police continue to do the work I believe they are trying to do now, but actually do more of it, which is to go out and talk to all of our wonderful, diverse community across, from Leicester, one of the largest cities in the East Midlands, through to the rolling countryside of Rutland and Charnwood and Northwest Leicestershire. This is a hugely diverse community, and the only way a PCC can do their job is to get out and meet the community, understand the needs, and also communicate back to the community what the police are trying to achieve, and perhaps be told when the police are failing. So that's my vision. I want to be a bridge between the community and the police, supporting our police to deliver the priorities of our community.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being both. And I said before, since we start with Asia now, I'll go to reverse now, and it starts with you, Ian, again. So the person who was the last will start, and then that's the rolling one. One of the ways that, and it's a technical question coming from a listener, they're saying that we are communities here in Leicestershire, and each community had its priorities, and sometimes might be different from the Rutland and inner city areas, or villages, or city streets. So when you're listening and the resources are that scarce, how you can manage to prioritize what the community wants, and sometimes it is coming down to the resources. How you manage that?
Absolutely, and in fact, I forgot to mention that our police force is one of the worst funded police forces in the country, and I would say I see part of this role is to fight for more resources for our police.
Now, my question is.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah. I recognise it is a very diverse community, and obviously the issues that affect a city like Leicester and the issues that affect Rutland are very different. And so it's important to be able to, and you can obviously have a situation where the police priorities, wherever possible, are tailored to the local community. Clearly, rural crime in the centre of Leicester is non-existent. So the local divisional police force priorities will be set in the context of the needs of the local community. And unfortunately, the reality is that we've had many years of underfunding. Leicestershire Police have cut £41 million, or made £41 million worth of savings over the last 14 years. So they are stretched, and sadly, sometimes they can't meet everybody's needs. So the important thing is we understand the priorities of the community, and also ensure we know how we as a police force are delivering for the communities. So focused by the needs of the area. defining those priorities by listing.
Thank you. It's same question goes. Aisha will be the last. Asia will be the last. Mr. Matthews, and my question is still, which is how you prioritize when the resources are what they are, if the different needs are different in different areas.
Sure. Well, I mean, the first thing to say is Ian is absolutely right. When it comes down to the amount of money per head of the population, Leicestershire don't do very well. That's because there's a national funding formula, and the amount of funding each police force gets depends on various things. So some of that is the number of crimes that are reported, some of it is how serious those crimes are. But you also get some really odd anomalies. So the average size of a house is included in the funding formula. It's bizarre. And every police and crime commissioner right across the country has asked the Home Office to update this funding formula, which is a good many years old. And the Home Office keeps saying, yes, of course we will, and then never do it. So, of course, lobbying for more money is important. What I've decided to do is to also look at trying to get money for specific projects. So not just asking the Home Office, can I have more money, but also looking at specific things. And the most recent one of those is to set up a specific task force within the Leicestershire Police to deal with antisocial behaviour hotspots. So I've managed to get £1.4 million from the Home Office to fund this. It's going to be started next year.
With all due respect, the question is the resources are what they are, and we know they are stretched. I'm talking about different areas which has different needs. How you prioritize and make sure that each and every area, for example, I made the analogy about the rural area in a city area, or that, so kind of ways of competing communities and needs of different communities within our Leicestershire.
Okay, so the best way to do that is to make sure that the police in each different area have got the resources they need. So in rural areas, we've got a rural policing unit, which has got four-wheel drive vehicles. In the back of those vehicles, they've got all sorts of equipment for looking after farm animals and for looking after rural crime. Of course, you don't need that in the city, and so we don't have that there. But in the city, the police officers have got all sorts of equipment for dealing with the sort of crime you get in more urban areas. So that's more to do with drink spiking. If we're looking at violence against women and girls, is to do with how to tackle armed people. So the armed response units and so on are more deployed there. So there are two different bits to this. There's the neighbourhood policing, which is the police on the ground and how they're divided up, and that's done really quite equally across the city and two counties as a whole. Then there's the centralised support, and it must be said, crime in the city of Leicester does tend to be more serious in terms of violence and crime elsewhere, and so that's where the majority of that goes. The answer to the question really is you look at what the crimes are and how many crimes there are in different areas, and then that's where you send the police. There's no point police going on patrol if there are no criminals for them to arrest. They go where the crime takes place, and it is the data that drives where the police go and what equipment they've got.
Thank you. Asia Bora, Asia, you hear my question. Go straight to the point, which is how you prioritize the resources that are stretched, as it mentioned before.
Knowledge and good points in what the two gentlemen spoke about, but if you're stretched and you've got to make a decision, why don't you make it equity based and turn take? So from going to fund rural projects, coming to fund city projects, and obviously if there's kind of where there's the most need, focus on that. But that's not to say focus exclusively, turn take. Next time go to the rural projects. Does that make sense? So overall, with the amount you've got, you're doing the best that you can.
Indeed, and thank you for being very short. I have 9 minutes or so before we go to the commercial. This question is, I will start with you, Asia, and it is to do with one of the forces ways of dealing with the with a crime, and it is a crime that is killing our youth, which is a knife crime. How you intend to tackle and make sure that our youngsters don't kill each other on the streets, and that's something that many parents are in their mind, and it's the questions are really coming from Vijay is not doing but collating those questions.
Sure.
Knife crime.
So I know that PCC responsibility, part of it is giving funding to projects. And one of the things that I'll be looking to prioritize in terms of funding projects will be anything that sort of safeguards provision for our youth in terms of training, in terms of leisure opportunities, because young people really, really need those safe spaces to go to just for normality and for that mentoring that they kind of receive. So on the one hand, you've got that kind of safeguarding aspect. I want to learn from, for example, the Bristol Green Party, where they've also experienced knife crime, where you have amnesty boxes to kind of hand in your weapons, hand in your knives, hand in the dangerous implements you may have. So listening and learning from other police forces, other green, where our policing plan has been delivered.
Thank you very much. Now I'll go to Ian. Ian, knife crime. Please go straight to the question so that we can have plenty of time.
Yeah, I had the great pleasure of attending a half-day briefing with the Chief Constable and indeed the staff from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. There is already some great work going on. I mean, there's the Violence Reduction Network, which is in place to try and working with charities, etc., to try to reduce violent crime in the first instance, particularly looking at, unfortunately, attendance at school post-COVID and the level of exclusions from school has led to far more young people being on the streets, which is they then cause trouble and bother. So they're trying to work to stop kids getting expelled, stop kids bunking off school, as we used to say. There is a thing called the Back Away Initiative, where they're trying to teach young people to either back away from confrontation or support their friends from backing away from confrontation. The other thing that's very important is being data driven. So a lot of data is being collected about where violence occurs, what time it occurs. I mean, the obvious point is, when pubs close, when clubs close, but also knowing where the hotspots are so that the police can be there to diffuse them. But I think the other thing, a real shame, is that as we use the phrase, and I think with good reason these days, broken Britain, where so many years of austerity has meant our social services generally are in a poor state, and of course the police and the NHS end up having to pick up the pieces. But the cuts to county council funding have meant that youth services have fallen away badly. So there aren't the youth clubs there used to be for kids to go to, do something more constructive than wandering the streets with knives. And a friend of mine, and I'll call out Rupert here and say, well done. A friend of mine runs a large shopping centre, and
but the question is specific, Ian. With all due respect, and I have a few minutes to spare before we go to the commercial. So you've been talking about the problem itself, but exactly what it is that you are, if you can do it in a minute or so.
Well, okay. So I mean, more of what we're doing now, the Violence Reduction Network, hugely important. More data driven policing, which to stop the issues. But also, what I was going to say is using the discretionary funds of the PCC to support setting up alternative activities for the kids and young people, so they're not on the street. And I mean, that I think is a really important thing to do, and it's within the PCC's power to do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I won't take your time. Go on straight. Mr. Robert Matthews.
Okay. Well, first of all, Ian is absolutely right. The work of the Violence Reduction Unit is essential. The work that's being done in schools is really important. And he's quite right. The PCC's office is able to support youth groups. And indeed, I do allocate tens of thousands of pounds every year to do exactly that. And that's, if you like, the first part of this. So we've got to educate our young people, explain to them why they shouldn't carry knives, explain to them why actually carrying a knife makes you a lot more likely to be a victim of knife crime than if you don't carry one. But as well as all of that, the education and the providing alternative activities for young people to do, there has to be the enforcement action as well. And I think it's interesting that over the past year, our policies have led to the fact that there is less violent crime on our streets in Leicestershire and Rutland than there was a year ago. But the number of people who the police are finding carrying knives has gone up, and that's a really worrying trend. We need to continue to stop people who we think might be carrying knives. We need to use the knife arch, the metal detector, one things, so it's not an intrusive search. But we do need to stop the people who might be carrying knives and get those knives off the street, and indeed prosecute the people who are carrying. There was a very nasty stabbing incident in Rushmead only on Friday, where just an unimportant altercation between a group of people ended up with a person being stabbed and is now in hospital. And of course, the person who did the stabbing has been arrested, or the person who we suspect of having done the stabbing has been arrested, and if found guilty is going to go to prison for a considerable amount of time. Knife crime is really serious. Ian's right. You've got to do the education. You've got
Rupert, you have 60 seconds before the commercials come on.
As well.
60 seconds. Just repeat that one last bit again. You have 60 seconds.
Oh, okay. I said we do need to do the education. We need to do the diversionary activities. We need to make sure youth clubs have got activities. But the police have also got to be able to enforce the law on carrying knives, and that involves stop and search, and it involves targeting that on areas where knives are carried and where knives are used. Data-led, once again.
Thank you so much. We have only a few seconds, and I still invite all our listeners, please keep, and they're very shy today. They just texting. The phone is not ringing. Believe you me, they're giving more thoughts for us.
We are going into a commercial. We will be back in about 3 minutes' time. We will see you on the other side, and we're going to carry on this election talk. See you then.
EAVA, sharing the richness of cultures. This is EVA FM.
નમસ્તે. આયુર્વેદિક અને નિર્દોષ હર્બલ દવાઓ વડે સાંધાનો દુખાવો, અસ્થમા, ત્વચાની તકલીફો, ડાયાબિટીસ, વાળ ખરવા વગેરે જેવી જટિલ સમસ્યાઓના નિદાન માટે આયુર્વેદિક ઇલાજ સરળ અને સુરક્ષિત પણ છે. અને આવા દરેક રોગોના નિદાન માટે આજે જ સંપર્ક કરો. વૈદિક ગુરુ રાજુ આયુર્વેદિક સ્વાસ્થ્ય સ્થાન. આપની અપોઇન્ટમેન્ટ બુક કરાવી વધુ માહિતી માટે સંપર્ક કરો 07404 106 897, number 2 Saltersford Road, Leicester, LE5 4DE. Vedic Guru Raju.
This is EVA FM.
Many children living with type 1 diabetes miss out on life-saving tech like pumps and monitors. If your child has type 1 diabetes, is from an underserved ethnic group, and or you live in a socially or financially deprived area, you have the opportunity to share your story with Leicester University and Diabetes UK. Take part in an interview to help bridge the gap and ensure fair access for all children with type 1 diabetes. You'll receive £25 each for parent and child. Contact the team to find out more at dd253@leicester.ac.uk. That's dd253@leicester.ac.uk.
EVA FM.
The biggest open mic in the Midlands returns to Too Funky Music Cafe on Thursday, the 25th of April, 2024. EVA FM presents the open mic session. All genres welcome. Hosted by DJ Sandro. Doors open 7 p.m. Remember, it's free entry. Registration 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Limited places only. Over 18s only. ID required. For booking your place and more information, contact music@fridayflex.com.
Now this is the Eva FM. Yeah, every time watch a Top Cat, aka Cat 9 on them case. Special request all the massive with the cute face and sexy shape all the girl them. You don't know a Top Cat. There, boom.
Eva FM is a multilingual radio station serving the diverse communities of Leicester on 102.5 FM. For advertising and sponsorship, email sales@evafm.com or call 07811 659 364. That's 07811 659 364. Serving the community, 102.5 Eva FM.
Hello, welcome back. This is Eva FM 102.5, and this is the show where all the candidates are here to make sure that everyone is on.
Hashim, I will just go into right now. Okay, so we're going to carry on with these talks right now. I've got a first question. Hashim, who is first now?
I think Robert Matthews first.
Rupert Matthews first.
Talking,
okay.
Yes.
So this question's going out to all the candidates. We've seen some unrest in Leicester and in community, especially because Eva FM is East Leicester. We've seen some unrest. What as you guys, as a police crime commissioner, if you get elected, what would you do different? We've seen tensions within communities. This has never ever happened in Leicester. I will say we're still waiting. Communities are still waiting for answers and apologies from everyone that takes control of the city. So you guys, if you are elected as a police crime commissioner, what would you do different, and what are you going to implement in your policy in terms of better community cohesion and better diversity? This is going out to Rupert right now. Here we go.
Okay, thank you. You're quite right. People are still waiting for answers. At the police, we have finished our review of the policing, how it happened, and so on. We haven't released it to the public because the government-led independent inquiry has asked us to give it to them before we make it public. But one of the key factors is that the police need to be in touch with the communities, and they need to know what's going on the ground. And that intelligence needs to be properly analysed. I think one of the things that went wrong in the build-up to the trouble we had 2 years ago is that, with hindsight, there were plenty of reports of rising tension. There were reported incidents that, again, with hindsight, you could see were stoking up the community tension. But nobody was putting the picture together. It's like a jigsaw. You had all the pieces, but nobody was putting it together. So looking to the future, what we need and what we're now putting into place is to have an intelligence-led approach, which is looking at all the different little pieces that are going on, even if they're not particularly important in themselves, to see, is tension rising? Is there likely to be some sort of a problem going on? And then, of course, on the back of that, you've got to get in there and diffuse it. So one of the things that I think is really important for a police and crime commissioner is to get into the community and to get to understand what the community is thinking and to know the people who have influence there. This is one reason by one day every week, I'm not in the office. I'm out meeting the public and I'm meeting community leaders, whether it is in the city and in Leicester East, where, as you say, there is trouble, or whether it's amongst agricultural workers and residents over in Rutland or the Vale of Belvoir. It's absolutely essential. And then, of course, you have to be ready that if trouble breaks out, you have to be able to respond to it really, really quickly. And that is making sure that the equipment is ready to deploy and the officers are ready to deploy, and that they can be got out onto the street really quickly to stop any trouble escalating and getting out of hand. So the two things together: first of all, try to diffuse trouble before it gets going, try to talk sense, try to explain to people, no, okay, what you're doing isn't illegal, but perhaps it's not very wise and it might be better to calm things down. But then to be ready to react really quickly if trouble does break out, so it doesn't escalate and get out of hand. I'm confident we're doing that. I'm certainly playing my role by getting out into communities. If anyone looks at my social media, you will see that I am constantly out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. The same question again. We've seen a rise in community tensions over the last few years, especially in Leicester East. What would you do different? Hashim, who is next?
Asia Pora is
Okay.
next.
Asia, if you could please answer the question. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, you're on mute. I'm just going to get you off mute. There you go. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm from the area and I was raised there. So I just, remember historically it was way better, a lot more dialogue between communities and, so I think when residents have been complaining about things that could kick off, things where they have been unhappy for months on end with regard to, for example, street drinking or, loud sounds, parties going on late into the night, they weren't listened to. So there's a residue of kind of unhappiness and resentment over that. But I know that since the tensions kicked off, I've spoken to sort of parents whose children are still traumatized by what happened. So I think visiting those people, having a dialogue with them, recreating trust with them is essential because they were the victims. So why not center them? If police have made mistakes, if we all we're all human. We only see the bigger picture later in hindsight. Once you see that, you shouldn't be too big to kind of say, put your hands and say we got it wrong, and listen to, let the solutions come from the communities for how to do it differently.
Thank you.
Community-led.
Thank you so much. Okay, finally, the last candidate, Ian, if you could answer the same question. We've seen a rise in community tensions. What would you do? What would you implement if you were elected as a police crime commissioner regarding this? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I think the obvious points and indeed detailed points have already been raised, but it's clearly the police did not understand the communities well enough, and their intelligence network wasn't strong enough. I think one of the issues is that, as well as working with the traditional community leaders, it's important to understand how the community dynamics are changing and ensure that everybody that needs to be listened to is being listened to. I think certainly I would want to get engaged with the communities across Leicestershire and Rutland and Leicester, and but also I think part of the Police and Crime Commissioner's role is to work with other relevant parties to ensure that the strategy is delivered. And so clearly being closely engaged with other relevant public sector bodies like the City Council and charities and other organisations is part of that. It's a complex issue. I mean, that trouble didn't arise because people weren't being diligent. They just needed to, obviously, more needs to be done. And I'm very interested in what Aisha was saying about the fact that there was low-level antisocial behaviour that wasn't being addressed, which exacerbated those issues. And I think that's just exactly what we need to talk about how we can use community policing to ensure everybody can live in peace in their community. And I think finally, Rupert's right that obviously there comes a point at which the situation has got to such a pitch that the police have to get involved. And I think I'd want to certainly ensure that Leicestershire Police had been studying best practice across the country as to how to engage with those with civil strife, because unfortunately the sight of riot vans and riot shields can unfortunately make the situation worse. So making sure we exhibit best practice when, well, God, let's hope it never happens again. When problems arise, that they're handled in such a way that the situation is cooled down rather than becomes worse.
Thank you very much. The next question is coming from the community, and I think it must be some former police officer. The police is the mirror of the community they serve. That's it should be, and making sure that all the communities see themselves inside that mirror. And the truth has to be told. Yes, the Leicestershire Constabulary is been trying to reach out the ethnic minority, but the question is different now. The retention of the black and ethnic minority officers within the force after the recruitment is something that needs addressing. If you're a PCC, what you will do first to increase and make sure that the mirror of the society is there, and everyone as a police officers needed to be seen inside, so that you have not only culture but also multitask and a better force that can understand the community they serve. And once you reach that, how you retain. And this time Asia is first.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah? So
We can
I
hear you.
think something called the Police Race Action Plan is, is a kind of blueprint for crime commissioners working with chief constables to provide progress on how, how to police the black community and how to kind of retain black and, BAME officers. Something that they recommend is first of all that your police force is representative, it's inclusive, and it's got this internal culture of inclusivity. The second thing is not to over police BAME people, because that's, that creates suspicion. The third recommendation is to involve them with community engagement and relations. And then the fourth one is not to underprotect them from victimization. Look at the internal culture of your police force. How is it inclusive? How is it kind of, let the answers come from those officers themselves for what would keep them in the force longer, and act on that.
Thank you for being so.
It's about centering, listening, and then acting on what you hear.
Okay, next is Ian. Just same question. So to save my time, I won't repeat. I hope that you will listen to the question about the retention of BAME community officers, because the truth has to be told. The Leicestershire Constabulary has been recruiting many ethnic black minority officers in the force, and retaining is the question now, to keep those officers in there and keep the number up. Ian, it's you. Can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Hello, Ian.
You are frozen on my screen.
No, Ian.
Yeah,
Can you
sorry.
hear us?
It was. Yeah, I can hear you now. The signal broke up there. Yeah. Well, firstly, I'm not sure whether recruitment was part of what you were wanting to hear, but I asked the chief constable about the the demographic profile of the police, and he accepted that more needs to be done to recruit.
But what I said was they were recruiting. They were recruiting, and some of them were leaving even after they recruited, and still the target is not met. But that was the point I was making, not because everybody was there. Yes.
Yeah, well, firstly, I mean, at a broader point, and I'll come to the more specific. I mean, the retention of all the police officers is an issue because of the lack of resources, etc. So I know the police do have well-being and safeguarding initiatives to try to protect, to support their officers throughout their role. So it's not just an ethnic minority issue, but also as part of that, clearly we need to understand, the worst comes to worst, when people leave, we need to understand why they're leaving, what's wrong with the culture, because certainly the culture is stated, and certainly the behaviours that the chief constable exhibited when I spoke to him, it's certainly not the intention of the police force to offer anything other than a wholly inclusive environment. So if we're failing, we need to understand why. And I can't give a glib answer now because I don't have that data. But understanding when people become dissatisfied and when people do leave the police force, then clearly we have to have exit interviews and understand where we've gone wrong and modify our policies to stop that. Because recruiting police is difficult, and we can't afford not to retain. We must retain all the officers that we've recruited.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Rupert Matthews, same question to save you time.
Okay, thank you. Yes, retention and indeed promotion is something that hasn't really been focused on in the past. The focus has all been on recruitment, and that's great. And every year, Leicestershire Police have been recruiting a higher proportion than the year before from ethnic minorities, but not enough attention has been paid to retention. And some of this is about the working environment, some of it is about working practices, and the same goes for promotion. One of the blocks, I think, on promotion is that the different ethnic minorities tend to like to do different things within the police force. And I haven't really got to the bottom of this. Whereas the promotion within the police demands you're an all-rounder. You've got to be able to do a bit of everything. And if you haven't got the experience, you're not going to get promoted. So we really do need to look at how promotion works within the police and the working practices within the police as well. But I'll just, if I may, make another point. We're all focusing on ethnic minorities here. But the police force is mainly white, and it is mainly middle class, and it is mainly composed of people from suburbia. There is a real lack of people from the inner city, just as there is a real lack of people from more rural environments. And we need to be looking at the demographics as a whole. It's not just about ethnic minorities. If the police are going to be representative of everybody, you also need to be getting in people from the inner city, from working class backgrounds. But so you're quite right. It is retention and promotion where we need to be paying attention going forwards. And the first thing to do actually is to collect the data. If you haven't got the data, you don't know how you're doing on promotion. And I think that is something that I will want to address over the next 4 years.
Thank you very much. And also the question that I posed to was about ethnic minority, but also the police force. I was seeing some numbers about the male and female, and they're one of the best force when it comes to the male and female proportion, and they have to be commended on that, but also to make sure that the female staff got the support. That's not the question that I'm trying to pose now, but as a statistics, when I'm speaking, I have to be fair on the force as well, and make sure that I mention what I say and make sure that they did. This question coming from school governor, and one of the difficulties they have sometimes is that when they have a suspicion about some activities, they need have the focus working with the police, but not in a focused way of making sure that the police comes in numbers as an emergency, but also to take that and as we mentioned before, it is the schools, and some schools that I will not mention, there were a difficulties, and the police were called many times. So if you get into the post and you have that problem in front, how you will work with the governors of the school and the head teachers to make sure that the children are safe in the school, and those who are prone to do something are not only punished, but also as kids, to make sure that they have second chance, but most of all being taught well in the schools. And the question now goes directly to Robert Matthews, because he was the last speaker.
Okay, thank you. Well, the first thing to say is that schools have a huge role to play in keeping teenagers out of trouble. There's a lot of pressure on our young people coming from social media and indeed from criminal gangs for youngsters to get involved in things that they shouldn't be involved in. And the schools have a huge role to play there. And I want to pay tribute to the schools we've got across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. They play a big role in this, and they're really very proactive. So, thank you to everyone. Also, every school should have the name and phone number, contact details of a specific police officer who is dedicated to dealing with them. And so if there is any sort of a problem, or if there is a suspicion of things going on that shouldn't be, the school governors or the head teachers should have the name and phone number of a police officer to phone and talk to about that. And if anyone, any school doesn't have that, then for goodness sake, get in touch, because you should do. that can be a real step forwards. The other thing to say is,
but my question was prevention, not after something happens. So they, they were talking about listening ears, because us, the police, are very busy nowadays. They were talking about those points.
Yeah, no, quite right. And it is all about preventing crime. It's about preventing our young people getting into trouble. And that's why the cooperation between the schools, the police, and the Violence Reduction Network we've already heard about is really important, because it can stop that from happening. It can stop youngsters from getting into trouble, from stop youngsters basically from wasting their lives, which is a terrible thing for a young person to do. It's all about making sure the Violence Reduction Network has got the funding. It's about making sure that local youth groups and activities have got the necessaries that they need, be it a building or perhaps equipment. And that is something that quite a chunk of the PCC's budget goes into, and quite right too. So, yeah, I pay tribute to what the schools do, and I'd like to see my office and myself supporting them even more than we do at the minute.
Thank you very much. Next is Asia.
Again, going back to what we were saying about embedded police officers, so young men and women in the community, teenagers know, because they've been raised with a familiar face, a familiar neighborhood policeman, policewoman, so it's the embedded nature of the staff we put out. It's somebody they recognize, so a sort of a person who represents them in terms of color, in terms of class, in terms of gender. So have that diversity in terms of what your staff look like, and have the provision in school for different training programs, mental health provisions, working with social services, working with NHS if needed, if the need is acute. So have a kind of holistic view where policing works with these different agencies to create a kind of cohesive picture that creates that safety net for people. Really important, where all the different agencies and stakeholders are constantly talking to each other.
Indeed, thank you very much for being very focused to the point. Ian, last but not least.
Now, very much as the other candidates have said, working with the schools to address, I've referred to attendance and exclusions as being issues, but I'm a governor in a multi-academy trust. I go to quite a lot of schools across the county, and the schools are aware of not just absenteeism and issues that arise on site, but also the increased problem of child sexual exploitation and county lines. So part of the PCC's role, as I've said before, is to work with relevant local parties, local authorities, voluntary groups, charities, and indeed with schools. So it's important that the PCC continues to, and indeed provides more funding to facilitate the resolution of those issues within the school, because unfortunately, as we say, the kids who are involved in county lines, who are victims of child sexual exploitation or are truanting, this is where crime starts. You've got to be addressing it right at the start. Now, I wasn't quite clear from your question. Were you also referring to the response from the police when issues arise in the schools? I mean, obviously, we fail badly if the situation gets so bad that the police have to come to the school. And I know it does happen from time to time. And if the police force does have to engage directly with the school, it's essential that our police are using, again, best practices to resolve issues within the school. I'm sure they are, but clearly a heavy hand is not required, and the police need to be fully trained to ensure.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ian. Vijay, you have something in your mind? We are coming to the end of the program now.
Okay. Just wanted to say, is there anything that you guys as candidates are going to do differently than what's happening currently within the police? Is there any major changes you would like to see within our police force that currently is not there or isn't, or that hasn't been done. You know, we're hearing a lot of the similar kind of questions, the engagement. Is there anything new? Who is first, Hashim?
Ian is first because he was the last.
Oh, right, thank you.
This is going to you, so something new. Let's just go straight to it. We've got literally 4 minutes before the adverts. So quick minute.
I mean, something new. I mean, I don't think it is actually new. It's just doing more of it, working with partners, working with the community. And that's, you know, to be a bridge between the community and the police, we've got to ensure that we fully engage with the community and partners such as schools, the local authorities and voluntary groups. So,
okay.
Thank you. Asia,
let me just get you on the mic. There you go.
Yeah. Hi. I'm an excellent listener and an excellent communicator. So to me, I will see it as my responsibility to serve, and I will be tireless in going to different groups and asking what it is, what they want, and be led from, you know, action to be based on real need within the communities.
Thank you very much, Rupert.
Rupert.
Well, I've produced, of course, an action plan, which is available on my website, rupertmatthews.org.uk. I think the key point here is crime prevention. The police are very good at catching criminals and prosecuting criminals, but that needs to be also rolled into stopping crime taking place in the first place. Some of that is about locking up criminals. A lot of it is about diverting people away from crime, but also about putting in better lighting, better window locks. That's sort of pretty basic stuff, but it can all prevent crime from happening in the first place and keep everyone safer. So I want to see more in the way of crime prevention.
Thank you ever so much, really giving us your time. Last days of conversing and all that, and really it is worth it because we've been speaking on behalf of the community. All the questions that we were posing, not because we have done it, and it is to do with the public that are voiceless here. And good luck, and please, if you ever elected here. This is your station, and you can come back again to talk to the community. Good luck all. And Vijay.
Okay, we're gonna go into some commercials in 1 minute, and when we get back, I know we were gonna close, but I'm gonna give the opportunity for every candidate to give a closing statement, a closing brief statement straight after the commercial. So in 30 seconds, we're gonna go in the commercials. So if there's any final things each candidate wants to say, now is your chance. If you want to tell the community, remember people, this video will be staying up on our YouTube channel, the Eva FM and Facebook, so you'll be able to rewatch this. And I think it's important to give the opportunity to all the candidates for a closing statement. And it can be just about a couple of minutes long, not too much. We're going to go into the commercials in literally 15 seconds. When we get back, there's going to be a closing statement from each candidate, and Hashim will introduce each candidate onto here. So remember, this is Eva FM 102.5. This is the Live Police and Crime Commissioner Talks. See you on the other side.
EAVA, sharing the richness of cultures. This is Eva FM.
The biggest open mic in the Midlands returns to Too Funky Music Cafe on Thursday, the 25th of April, 2024. Eva FM presents the open mic session, all genres welcome, hosted by DJ Sandro. Doors open 7 p.m. Remember, it's free entry. Registration 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Limited places only. Over 18s only. ID required. For booking your place and more information, contact music@fridayflex.com.
Online at evafm.com. The voice of Leicester. This is Eva FM.
Boom! This is Orisha Soul.
And you're listening to Eva FM.
Hey!
We there. Aki and saltfish, roast yam there. Hot gal in the party. Enough gal there.
Pack your buns.
And come Orisha Sound there. Eva FM.
This is Eva FM.
Strong woman in my life, yo. Want a woman where will keep me happy day and night, yo. Strong woman in my life, yo. We don't want no warmonger, we don't want no switch by my side. Yeah, when I jam on, you don't know, so right now you're in tune to Eva FM 102.5. Boom!
English, Hindi, Punjabi, Urdu, Chinese, South African, Sri Lankan, Polish, Somali, French, West African, Arabic, Swahili. The voice of Leicester. This is Eva FM.
All the way you got to hear when I say Eva FM, I play a tune with class, we say. Teach them down, for you to wrap up and play. Brat, you don't know all the point. This is me saying tune to Eva FM, teaching them. Bam!
हेलो दिस इज अनूप जलोटा और आप सुन रहे हैं ईवा एफएम जो गाना पसंद आए उसको सुनिए और जो प्यारा लगे उसको गुनगुनाइए
Eva FM is a multilingual radio station serving the diverse communities of Leicester on 102.5 FM. For advertising and sponsorship, email sales@evafm.com or call 07811 659 364. That's 07811 659 364. Serving the community, 102.5 Eva FM.
Serving the community, this is Eva FM 102.5 and this is your station. As we promised, and then we go again, as I was ordering before. Now, into the hands of Asia Bora. Asia, it's your turn now.
And his final closing statements, if there's anything you would like to say to the communities of Leicester on our platform at Eva FM, to all our listeners, now is your chance to really, really tell them how you feel about this position, this whole role. So yeah, take it away.
Yeah. So I'm constantly listening to people, constantly learning. So recently learned that, instances of, for example, depression and mental health kind of troubles for farmers is one of the highest across, one of the highest apart from rural vets, So I'm really happy that our policing strategy is connected to social services, mental health provision, and so on and so forth. So I'll be a responsive, hardworking PCC who wants to centre safety, cohesion, and reduce vulnerability. I've always cherished variety and difference, so celebrating the different communities that what Leicester have to offer, and I'll be keeping a close ear on the ground to see how it is that the role can be expanded and enhanced.
Thank you very much for being so short and then to the point. Robert Matthews, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I've been the Police and Crime Commissioner now for 3 years. When I was elected, I said that the changes I wanted to see would probably take 2 terms to bring into effect. So I'm now back for re-election, asking for that second term in order to continue with the changes I want to see. I promised to give you more police officers. There are more police officers. I promised to drive crime down. Crime has been going down over the past year. Crime as a whole has gone down by 4.4%. Burglary has gone down by 7%. Serious violence is down by 12%. So in the past 3 years, I've started to make the difference I promised to make. I want to be able to continue with that job. I'm delivering lower crime. Crime is lower than it was 1 year ago. I want to continue to do that. So if you want crime to go down, please vote for me, Rupert Matthews, the Conservative candidate. Thank you.
Thank you for being so direct. Again, last but not least, Ian.
Thank you. Yes, my vision for this role is to support our police to deliver your priorities. We should have no doubt that the police are heading for a crisis. £5 million worth of cuts are demanded of them, which will take out 100 support staff, vital support staff, forensic scientists, IT specialists, etc., etc. I will fight to support our police by diverting as much resource as I can to protect the frontline services. I will also fight like mad to get better funding for our police. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own home and walking down their streets. Unfortunately, that is not the experience for many people. 21% of burglaries were not attended by the police in Leicestershire last year. 78% of burglaries went unsolved. So I promise you, I will listen to our communities. I will fight to support our police to ensure they deliver on what our community is asking for and what our community needs. This is a tough year ahead. I think I have the skills to deliver, to ensure we deliver the best police force we can. I'm Ian Sharp, and please vote for me on Thursday.
Thank you ever so much. It's been very lovely to have you here, and we wish you luck for the 2nd of May elections. And this has been your show, and we were talking to the candidates for the Police and Crime Commissioner, and they put forward all their visions, and which I think I don't know how the time flies.
I know.
My God!
It's been 1 hour, and we've been speaking to 3 of the candidates for the Police and Crime Commissioner election talks for 2024. It's been absolutely fantastic having them here. So I want to thank the 3 candidates. Hashim, can you say the candidates' names? The first one.
Yes, Asia Bora.
From which party?
She's from the Green.
Okay. And then the second candidate, which we had?
Robert Matthews, and he's from the Conservative.
And then the final candidate that came on today,
Ian Sharp, who's a Liberal Democrat.
Yeah.
There are 2 other candidates, and we've given everyone the same chance. And those who responded,
Rory Palmer from Labour and Fizia from One Leicester. And they did give their apologies. But yeah, I want to say thank you. It's so important you, the listeners, you, the public of Leicester, vote for the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Not only because police come in numbers, because last time the turnout was not great, and make sure that you go and present yourself with valid ID. Remember that, please, because it will be awkward if you turn up with your voting card and the voting invitation without ID, and they will turn you away. Please make sure you have. And if you are voting for a postal, please, there is a deadline that you need to put in those into the post office after you follow the instruction that you have seen. So please make sure that you look out if you are voting by post.
Hashim, this has been fantastic. We are now going to close our live feed on YouTube and Facebook. So we're carrying on FM. So we will see you on the other side. So we're closing